Hello. Hello. Welcome to DesignOps. Cool. This is our 5th meetup. We do intend to have these every 2 months, but bear with us. We do live in interesting times. If I seem a little bit disorganized, I apologize. My MacBook Pro, which I was going to run this meeting on, died literally 15 minutes ago as I was loading up this meetup. So that could have sort of stressed me out a little bit. I appreciate that you've come here tonight. First, I just want to start by finding out who we have here tonight. So we've got a couple of polls there. So it'd be great if you could answer those polls and just kick it off and say, where you're from and what you do. Like, we'd love to know that. So the plan for tonight is to introduce the DesignOps Sydney meetup, introduce Daphne, our speaker, who will talk for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then we can do a Q&A session with Daphne, which I'm quite excited about. All right. So why DesignOps? The purpose of this meetup is to create a community to support design leaders, senior designers, and DesignOps professionals. The meetup explores DesignOps and design leadership topics that covers tools, processes, people, and craft that support design and organization. This includes design up roles, design systems, design management, the design org, scaling design teams, improving design workflows, research, design, dev, collaboration, hiring of designers, the makeup of teams, education, governance, infrastructure, and the evangelization of design within the wider organization. So it's more than just design systems. It can cover a lot of different things. While we've got this little picture. We're looking for sponsors. So if you want to find that special unicorn for your design team, please come speak to me. And once we're back in person, we're also going to be looking for some venue hosts. So if you've got some available, please come talk to me. One of the things I just want to point out is there's ask a question button on the bottom center or bottom right for a lot of people. If you want to ask a question during Daphne's talk, please just raise the question and we can start to answer those during the Q&A session as we go through. Cool. All right. All right, so tonight I'm very excited to bring you Daphne Bourne, Design Operations Manager at Afterpay. So let me introduce Daphne. Daphne is a dual American-Australian citizen who recently returned from New York City, where she headed up one of Capital One Bank's design operation teams. Daphne's worked alongside Adaptive Pathers following their acquisition by Capital One Bank back in 2014, and learned from the likes of DesignOps gurus Kristin and Alana Washington, to name a few. She successfully embedded the DesignOps function across a design team of 70 designers and Capital One's design operations community of practice, supporting a design organization of 500 designers across the US. Before Capital One, Daphne kicked off her career in design operations here in Sydney at Westpac, implementing the design program management in a large Agile release train as part of the Agile design systems team. Daphne recently returned to Sydney after joining Afterpay as their first and only design operations person. Daphne will be speaking today about product strategy ops and the evolving role of design strategy. And I'm going to invite Daphne to the stage now. Welcome, Daphne.
Can you see me okay?
Hello, welcome, Daphne.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good.
All right, I'm going to disappear now, and I'm going to lead you in charge.
Okay, I'm going to try and figure out this screen share thing. Bear with me. Right. Okay, so today is all about fun logistical craziness for Ollie, and then actually me as well. I came into the Afterpay office today to present because I wanted to have a really strong network, and it was the first day we've ever had our Wi-Fi drop. So it's Murphy's Law, right? Okay. So can everybody see my screen okay? See my presentation? It's really hard because I can't see any of you guys, so I'm just gonna kind of go with the flow here. All right, so this is me. My sort of tagline is my role as a design operation manager is to enable designers to focus on solving real customer problems while maintaining quality and customer-centric design rigor in fast-paced digital delivery environments. I've coached design teams from everything on more effective ways of working with their partners in product and tech to implementing full-scale agile transformation. And I've spent the last 10 or so years working in UX and design management, as Ollie said, in both small design agencies and for the likes of Westpac and most recently Capital One Bank. So just came back, of course, because of COVID. So had a great 2.5-ish year stint in New York where I led up that DesignOps team, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. But currently, I'm now responsible for about a 22-ish person product design team here at Afterpay. We're rapidly scaling over about 4 different time zones in 3 different countries. So most of the time, I'm accountable for fostering happier, healthier designers through kind of clear program and portfolio management in agile environments. And listed here are just some of the areas that I'm super passionate about and tend to kind of champion throughout my career, specifically within product design environments. So tonight's agenda, I just wanted to give you a bit of a context of my role and some of the common problems I've been tasked to solve during my DesignOps career here, there, and sort of back again. Also how my influence has increased rapidly beyond design teams and kind of into product ops. How I've leaned into, no pun intended, the Lean UX canvas as a tool that's helped kind of provide that influential cut through across pretty much every product organization I've worked in. And then I'll try and keep it pretty brief so I can leave time for you to ask some questions at the end and hopefully not talk too much because I tend to waffle on. So I'll try and be succinct as possible. I will say a bit of a caveat. I can't dive into too much detail today, as some of the examples I'm sharing are kind of in flight at the moment right now at Afterpay. So it might seem a little high level, but I'm definitely more than happy to talk to people offline and LinkedIn or anything like that if you want to dive deeper into anything I talk about tonight. So normally when I'm hired and people think, oh my gosh, we need design operations, these are pretty much the tasks or initiatives that I'm normally hired to do. It's a lot, and it's usually around how we can work better together, how we get work done, and how our work creates impact. Now, sometimes I've been tasked to kind of look after most of these things by myself. Really depends on the team size. I think the healthiest kind of ops ratio to design team is usually 1 ops person to 12 designers. Most recently, I had an operation team of about 9 ops managers. And that was probably around, we started with 2 when I first got there in 2018. And by mid 2020, we were, around 9 folks. But that was supporting a lane of about 70 to 75 odd designers. So we were able to sort of dive deeper into more of these kind of initiatives at Capital One. But for context now, it's just me by myself. So trying to pick off all of these things and work with some advocates across the business to help me kind of dive deeper is definitely my new challenge in this role. This is my old design operations team at Capital One. So again, we supported around 70 to 80 odd designers. And as we grew, we kind of started to, I guess, really specialize in these different areas that you'll see in this beautiful Venn diagram. Everybody needs a Venn diagram, right? I kind of focused on that portfolio operations and program management side. We had a people operations kind of focus where we looked at recruiting right talent, developing the people, building the culture, onboarding, those types of things. And then our collaboration operations quickly kind of became research ops, where we were developing operational guidelines, looking at physical and digital spaces in our labs, and trying to share all the knowledge as best we can. So for context, if I'm super lucky, my first few weeks on the job kind of start out like this. I try to take a human-centered design approach to investigating the current ways that teams are working. So I usually spend maybe like 2 to 3 weeks of interviewing lots of different people and then looking at that kind of data synthesis. And I guess the point of that is to really start out the role in measuring the current design team's operating rhythm, just to give me a baseline so that I can measure maybe in 10 to 12 months time, all the different things that we've implemented, how we've improved. I always try to include product and engineering to remove any bias when I'm doing these sort of listening tours, if you will. And the idea is really to uncover those areas of operational opportunity and then, I guess, validate any assumed kind of process gaps that, let's say, my VP or head of might have already had in mind when he hired me. And then really it's to kind of help me create a bit of a North Star for myself so that I can get some focus and be able to start to implement some change. The types of questions or themes I sort of use in these listening tours are really around understanding engagement models. How does ideation happen? How are people's opinions received? What does problem definition space look like and briefing look like? Trying to get an understanding of like cadence of collaboration. So how are engineering and products kind of engaged along the way with their design partners? What are any current kind of governance models or quality checks that we have in place before work kind of goes out the door? What are some of our product processes, and how are those known across the business? So like, how are we kind of evangelizing our work and the value of design across the rest of the business? I always look to uncover kind of roles and responsibilities, both within kind of cross-functional teams, but then also within a greater design organization. And also just looking at specific tools or skills that people are using to get jobs done. And if they're consistent, shared, unique, that kind of thing. And then that sort of gives me a little bit of my North Star, right? It starts to kind of firm up as I'm analyzing all the insights. I look at participant quotes, and it's like a little bit of a research project, right? Looking for those gaps and areas of gaps for improvement and opportunities. So sorry, it's a little bit loud in the background. And then here are my kind of pillars or North Star. We can, I guess, deliver a better customer-centric product through collaborative process and culture achieved through these particular types of pillars here. This is pretty much standard everywhere that I've worked. So I've just found that these are probably the ones that bubble up the most: customer centricity, quality, efficiency, and velocity and culture. And then I work with my VP, head of, or director, and we usually start with obviously looking at the design team and what we need to implement and kind of what my diagnosis is. So based off of kind of all of those insights, major 3 things that we try to pick off are establishing a framework for our process. I usually kind of lean into the double diamond, and we'll get into that in a second. We look at creating kind of ceremonies with an agreed cadence for quality and governance, and applying a design workflow. That's really what I mean when I talk about like using tools like Jira or Monday.com or Asana, where we're trying to migrate an entire design team into a project planning tool with kind of like a double diamond framework as our applied design workflow. So I'm sure you guys all know the double diamond, but I've traditionally favored this framework as it seems to be kind of the most understood by our product partners, by engineers, by business partners, and usually budding designers that are kind of new to the business. It really helps align our approach, our milestones and our activities and ways of working in kind of a quick, digestible way. We then also look at our quality and governance. So this is a little, and I'm sorry, I've had to blur it out, but this is basically us trying to create a little bit of a governance and quality process that is sort of linked to that double diamond process. So trying to understand how the designers can obviously share their work and hold critiques inside the design team, but then also outside. How do they make space for those cross-functional teams and give them that visibility? And this is that applied process that I was talking about. So we organized our workflow, again, to follow that double diamond process. And it's been really great as I've seen designers kind of bring that process into a tool like a Jira or a Trello or a Monday.com, where it's helping everybody have more transparency and more alignment across usually an entire program of work, and then broken down into kind of smaller teams. But it's really helping us kind of also implement that dual track Agile methodology, where we're kind of progressing our definition of done into engineering backlogs for grooming and things like that. And then obviously giving my managers or heads of that visibility in identifying areas of improvement, blockages, and sort of resource planning. So you can see I've kind of, again, used that double diamond across the top, and then created a little bit of like the types of activities that our designers would do in those specific milestones. Because sometimes you say double diamond and it's a little bit too overwhelming for folks. So we've even like added in like a little menu of activities that you would do in those specific phases. And then we even created like a trigger to change. So what needs to happen to that specific piece of work in that part of the process to then move it on to the next phase. And then we underpin that with a ceremony or a cadence to help keep that workflow moving and healthy. And then kind of while we're synthesizing all this data and all this listening tour information and insights, the inevitable happens, right? We start to look at how the whole product org tends to work. And this model here, it's adapted for pretty much every organization that I've worked in. But this is where my head of, my VP, and I start to see those process gaps, and they become really loud and really obvious. And then all of a sudden the focus changes away from like all these great things that we're doing with the design team and getting them healthy and using tools and using the double diamond to like, oh my gosh, what if we could solve like everything for the whole product org by fixing this, fixing that? And then that's where my scope creep has kind of come in. I've kind of moved from design ops into like this product ops phase. So the focus changes to this, like, how can we start to influence product? How can we get further up that funnel? What if we can help them understand the problem they have before they kind of hand us over these baked solutions or briefs? And this is kind of where I get to this place where I'm like, well, but I'm design ops. I'm not product ops. Like I just look after the design team, and my initiatives are kind of focused on keeping the designers healthy and working. I'm not product ops. But as one of my bosses, Jason Wishard, told me, influence begins outside the scope of what you've signed up for. So I found that I probably most commonly looked for influence in areas that I was comfortable with, or areas that I knew, like the design process and double diamond frameworks and all that good stuff. I actually often wondered if it was a cultural thing. I remember telling my boss, Jason, about this, and he was at Capital One in the States. I was explaining to him what the Australian tall poppy syndrome was, and that I might have some PTSD from that. Because I've kind of been encouraged over the years to really stay in my area of expertise and just kind of focus on design. And when I got to New York, that sort of all changed. And everybody was thinking, actually, what you're doing can really affect the whole product organization. So I found the most impact and influence I experienced was when I kind of went outside of that whole laundry list of design operations functions I showed you guys at the beginning, and started to dive deeper into those wider areas of kind of process improvements, that diagram that I just showed you before. So Even at Capital One, things like product ops working groups started to bud around me, and they'd invite me in and we'd workshop things, and we'd bring in Agile coaches and we'd bring in analytics folks, and they eventually, the product team started to mirror the exact same structure as our design ops team at Capital One. And we realized, okay, I think we're kind of onto something here. So I guess the trickle down of solving these kind of product ops like process improvements is that it intrinsically helps kind of grease the wheels for design teams' efficiencies. Two patterns have happened once my team started working as those well-oiled machines, were that our product partners and our engineering partners were watching us. You know, they started noticing our designers were setting up planning and ideation rituals and ceremonies in their calendars. They kind of started to drink our Kool-Aid as well. I remember at Westpac, one of the engineers actually turned back some work because he learned about our design review process, and he knew that it was pretty airtight. And he started to kind of push back and say, look, if this hasn't gone through, you know, the design approval, then we're not ready to work on it yet. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a moment. Engineering is actually adapting our process before their process. Like, how cool is that? So I've also started to notice when product started to request us to run these lean canvas workshops, which again, any of you dialing in from my old Westpac days will remember those. And we helped them prioritize their laundry list of projects. Our partners kind of wanted to have whatever we were having, and they wanted our help to help reduce their noise of prioritizing these backlogs that they had. And I guess the best part of my role is that I started shepherding the design team into this kind of new daunting world of product roadmaps and prioritization models to help kind of influence them to be that business partner and to have kind of a different seat at the table. And so here's where the rubber meets the road. Lean UX Canvas. Now, I'm sure you all have seen a Lean UX Canvas before, but pretty much everywhere I've worked, I noticed that our product partners have a tendency, not everybody, has a tendency to work from educated hypothesis, right? Like basically a good hunch. And they tend to progress straight into like really prescriptive briefs or a solution that they've already kind of predefined based off of like technical feasibility and what the business needs. Sometimes those turn into like almost requirement documents or those old school functional specs. Like decisions have kind of already been made. They're basically just telling people to kind of go away and do it. And I really found that the Lean UX Canvas can kind of change that. And I've even heard where our product partners have said, look, I'm bombarded with unprioritized noise of new feature requests, of executive ideas, of marketing and sales initiatives, on top of all the things that I actually want to build based off of learnings that I have as a product manager on this product. So how might we help them? By creating a relative way of socializing and kind of defining these ideas in a way that ensures we're considering the viability of the business, which is important for our product partners, the technical feasibility, and the customer desirability equally. Enter the Lean Canvas. While we need to move quickly to respond to users in the market, we also need to ensure we're working on the right things at the right time. And I've found that this tool has driven collaboration amongst cross-functional teams to quickly document hypotheses, assumptions, and insights in kind of one simple source of truth, sorry, I should say. So this one pager is a quick, consistent way to summarize what we're working on in plain English, and it ensures that everyone who needs to be involved has had a chance to input. It aims to capture the core principles of feature discovery and the key things that you'd want to validate in a discovery phase. It also encourages really tough questions to be asked and kind of those trade-off decisions to be made early. And it also indicates that a new piece of work is starting, so we can spot any crossovers or dependencies between those different areas of the business, like product, engineering, sometimes analytics and strategy and design. But most importantly, the one pager that it is forces us to kind of articulate what success looks like in the form of concrete measurable metrics. So as you can see, this is actually a version that I created for Capital One, and we iterated on it so many times, but you'll see at the top, there's a problem statement area, which is our customer value prop. And that really became kind of the focal point for if we've got an idea or a feature, or we're kind of trying to validate some hypotheses, we always used to use this customer value prop to kind of start out and kick off the project around this. This is for whatever type of customer, to allow them to do blah, so that in order to blah, kind of like a gherkin thing, right? And then you've got those first areas of the desirability, everything that we know about the customer, any insights, any research that we have, which is really equally weighted against the viability, as you can see in the solutions kind of ideas and business outcomes, where people put all their KPIs and their metrics and things that they're hoping to achieve with this particular idea. And then underpinned by the feasibility at the bottom, which is around understanding the business and technology impact and any dependencies or any kind of regulatory things. I've worked in fintech probably most of my recent career, and regulatory dependencies is a big one down in the feasibility area. And also just getting a quick complexity and sizing kind of understanding, really high level and really early. The canvas is great because it's really ensuring that the right people are problem solving together at the right time. So you're kind of establishing these shared goals and those KPIs and metrics for the project team all together when you're kicking off work with this canvas. And you're creating that empathy and understanding, like tech, here's what design's on the hook for, design, here's what tech's on the hook for. And you get that commonality also through kind of finding that shared problem statement and that shared responsibility and ownership for the work. And it's ensuring that each of those disciplines is involved and aligned from that product or from that idea's inception. So no one's really handing over any big solutions to design or tech. This is really trying to kind of gear us for that democratic, balanced approach. It's customer-centric, where a lot of frameworks or a lot of prioritization techniques or other models I've seen really heavily weight the business and or the feasibility. What I love about the Lean UX Canvas is it really keeps the customer equally weighted to all the other decision factors and the dependencies, which tend to kind of get lost amongst business needs or tech constraints, sometimes even executive decisioning. So the CVP really helps firm up that focus. And it's a great focus, right? It's a system of record that all the disciplines can become familiar with and understand. And it's that living document that how we used it before, it kind of gets refined throughout the process. It can start off really, really high level just to get conversations happening and like a 1 hour kickoff. And then if people feel like they need more time to do a design sprint or a tech spike because they can't fill it out with that level of granularity or detail, it sort of becomes a living document and progresses and gets more detailed over time. And it sort of becomes that North Star for the project team to align under, that single source of truth for the goals. And it's also really concise. It's great for sharing information with either stakeholders or partner teams or even senior leadership, because it puts all the main components and reasons as to why this feature is worthwhile into one document. And by definition, sort of clearly articulates those risks and assumptions you're sort of willing to take. Some of the outputs from the canvas as well, I mean, other than like, you know, a great kind of kickoff or a great way to start formalizing this piece of work, is kind of validating and sharing those goals. So in one part of the viability section, it asks for the business's sort of metrics or understanding of what is this going to achieve? Is this going to save the company money? Is this going to make the company money? Is this going to help our customers? Like, what are those actual maybe KPIs or OKRs? And it helps actually make sure that the business's vision and larger initiatives are also being connected back to this work. So people feel like it's purposeful work, and ensures that we're kind of focused on the things that the business is aligned to as well. So you're starting to kind of roll up that work that maybe might be at a smaller, more epic or feature level to those larger OKRs or KPIs. Prioritization. So kind of a whole nother talk, but there's a second step to the canvas that I've used before, where you can actually use like a formula based off of the Fibonacci scale to create like a scoring system for the desirability, the viability, and the feasibility criteria on what that canvas is affording us. And that can help create some relativity and even like some actual numbers and metrics to start to take your ideas or features or concepts into more of that relative kind of framework, so you can start to kind of understand, actually, that's not that much of a priority anymore. That's kind of fallen down below the others. So if you start to move those early concepts or ideas into like a consistent framework by always kicking off with a canvas, you're getting that relativity that helps, again, your partners be able to kind of prioritize the noise of the work that's coming in for them. And obviously team alignment. I mean, for me, probably arguably the most important part of the entire thing. The canvas is like a tool to kick off these conversations, right? It's trying to bring the team together to agree on this work collectively. And it's hopefully progressing this conversation to an actual project kickoff. So for me, the canvas is almost just like a tool fostering this conversation or fostering this meeting of people, so that everybody feels aligned from the beginning. They've been heard, we've documented it, and now we have some next steps to move through as a team. So here it is in real life. Like, I have basically found that this tool and this framework has just been the biggest cut through for everywhere I've gone. And I've become really passionate about it. And I've, feel like if you can teach something or coach something or kind of do it in your sleep and kind of just like take it wherever you want, it's something that you should stick with. So I first, actually, this video that you're looking at was literally my 4th week at Capital One. And it was a product all hands where like 30 of our product partners were traveling to New York City to attend a full day's offsite. And my boss said, why don't you go and run one of these lean canvas workshops? And I was like, I don't know anybody in product. Like, what? I'm just the design ops person, like, what do you mean? And sorry, that's Klaus. He actually put this whole video together, bless him. But their agenda was like packed with pod missions and KPIs and team culture and norms. And kind of here I was gate crashing, fresh off the boat from Sydney and running this workshop on problem definition and prioritization to a completely different group of folks that I wasn't even hired to work in. But the reason why I got there was because I started socializing this prioritization framework and this tool. And people found that it was really helpful. I started to run little lunch and learns with a product partner who had used it in a previous role as well, to kind of get more of that kind of grassroots approach. And our engineers loved going to lunch and learn. So I kind of started to get the engineers interested into what this whole lean canvas was as well. And we started to share it out, saying, look, it doesn't always have to come from product or design. Anybody can use a lean canvas to come up with an idea. I even used it, that group photo there at the top. That is when I used it for good social impact. We had a non-for-profit team where I was invited to run some lean canvas workshop for small businesses and non-for-profits in this Richmond, Virginia community. So it's like transcended, the corporate banking world and into these non-for-profits, which was so great. And I guess my entire kind of thesis for assembling the three-legged stool using this canvas got me to using it at my first DesignOps Summit conference, which was in Manchester a few years ago, Digital Project Management Summit in the States, and UX chapters up and down the East Coast, and even the Sydney Design Thinking Meetup. So cool. Okay, how does it work, right? I guess for me, this is kind of a little bit of like a quick little one-step pilot, 1 through 7 step framework, if you like. I find the best way to kind of get the canvas going and get people interested is find a product manager advocate in your product org and kind of talk to them about like, all right, what if we did this experimentation kind of idea on collaborative problem solving, and then pilot the lean canvas. I work usually with product partners to kind of assemble this cross-functional team to make sure that we have design involved, we have engineering. Sometimes we've had data analytics to help us with those KPIs and OKRs, like if they have actual great insights and numbers and all that good stuff to add to the particular workshop. And then we try to, well, I've found that if you do a few, it really helps. So sometimes I get probably, I'd say maybe one canvas probably takes about an hour and a half. And I try to block out like an afternoon or maybe 2 half-day sessions with my product partner where we run a handful of these lean canvas workshops. So he or she might come to me with a list of, let's say, 5 or 6 projects that have been given to them, like for the next financial year. And what we might do is just pick them off one at a time and try to set up that workshop there. So hopefully after that workshop, we can then kick off that work and ideally start story mapping with design and kind of leaning into the double diamond framework to help them to start planning what those next steps out of that canvas are. I always like to do a retro, especially if you're doing some sort of experimental kind of pilot idea with your product partner, to make sure that you talk to that team that you assembled and find out what was great, what was weird or awkward or challenging, and then how you could make it better. And then kind of iterate on it from there, right? And that's really how I kicked it off with Capital One and even some smaller places as well in between. And then what I try to do is create a little bit of a case study or create a story or a presentation and then share it up and out. And that's how I've kind of found that influence spreads really quickly. All right, I'm about the half-hour mark, so I feel like I'm on time. So hopefully you've come away with maybe 4 things that applying kind of or deploying your human-centered design skills to uncover those areas of opportunity or process improvements, or looking at your product org as a whole rather than just your design org, can kind of push that level of influence a bit out while making sure that you're understanding the problems that you're trying to solve properly. And obviously finding a framework, discover and lean in early with your partner teams on frameworks that might work for you or your business. I just happen to love the lean canvas, and I just happen to have, taken that with me wherever I've gone, and it just seems to work really well. But maybe you have another one that you've worked with in the past that you really love. Also, I think making sure that you're creating those shared languages by trying to democratize your product organization as best as possible. And I usually try to do that by assembling kind of that 3-legged stool with product design and engineering really early, so that you're creating that empathy with the lean canvas or with those particular workshops. And those kind of shared languages sort of come out as you're sort of equaling that playing field together. And obviously influence, beyond your scope, right? I always just thought, okay, I'm just going to come in here and do my DesignOps thing. But as soon as I started looking for the spaces kind of beyond to hold those sort of out of scope conversations, I really felt like I was starting to kind of move out of DesignOps and into product ops or product design ops, or I don't know, wherever it's going to go. But it seems to be growing bigger every day. And that is it. I hope that was all right. I hope I didn't talk too fast or waffle on.
Fantastic.
Oh, good. Should I stop sharing?
No.
Oh, no.
I think it's...
Oh, I think that's a good sound.
Yeah, that's my sound in my computer just finally starting again. We have time for some questions.
Great.
I think Chris has put one up on the question and answer section.
Okay.
He's asked, and I might actually invite him on screen if.
Ooh.
Let's see if this works.
Let's do it. It's very hard not having an audience to engage with.
G'day. Hi.
Hi.
I didn't think I would be invited along. I'm dealing with a 2-year-old below my feet playing with dinosaurs.
I love it.
That's life as it is at the moment. So,
that's right.
Just to probably clarify on my question, I've worked in the team that looks after the design system at the company that I'm at, and I've recently just moved into another team who looks after our experimentation program. And working in that team, I started to notice how there's some inefficiencies with design in the team that I'm kind of the sales team that I'm working alongside of. And I'm at this delicate point of how do I come in and understand how design's working in their team without it seeming like I'm coming in and encroaching on somebody else's territory and kind of getting told, go away, we've got our designer in this team, leave us alone. So trying to look at like some tips to maybe start going in and talking to them about how can we make design in that team a bit more efficient without coming in and saying, I've noticed that all these things are wrong.
Yeah. No, look, I think that's kind of where I started most of my jobs is that moment where either my boss, who might be the head of design or the head of operations, has basically said, look, we have a lot of inefficiencies, but kind of pull it right back and looking at it as more of like this listening tour. So trying to understand, trying to do a bit of research, trying to almost, and you know who I do this a lot with is actually service designers. They have these really great ways of pulling out information in a very kind of like neutral and just like collective and documentation kind of mindset. Oh, hi, little one. So I feel like if you're coming at it from like how many designers are there?
At the moment, I think there's 6 underneath me, but the company in total, we have about 13. But there's only one designer in this one team who looks after our joint experience.
I don't know. I would maybe just, I guess I would pull back and make it more of like a listening tour or a research opportunity. Like, hey, we're taking a look at the ways of working. Like, how can we improve? How can we be better? We've been working together for X amount of months now, and really, it's not specific. And that's what I've tried to do, and that's why I've included engineering, and that's why I've included product when I'm really also trying to find out like how mature my design team is by just really kind of bringing it broad and back out, and I guess trying to make it less specific about design and maybe more about how are we working together as like a larger org.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that approach of just going in, listening, and that human-centered approach of I just want to help me understand how it works in that team. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
All right, Sophia, are you okay to come on next? Otherwise, we can just answer the question. The question is, before you do the lean canvas, have you already done the research to bring to the sessions?
Great question. Yes and no. The great part about the desirability section or the customer section of the lean canvas is in a workshop, that's usually like design's moment to be like, all right, great, this is my section, right? I've got all these amazing customer insights. We've got this research. We've got this work that we've already been doing. Or sometimes we might be like, well, we have research, but it's really old and really outdated. Oh, hi, there you are.
Hi.
Hi. So sometimes it's an opportunity for us to say, hey, we don't have any research. And like, how can I negotiate for some time or some funding? Because look at this whole customer section, it's empty. We don't have any insights, or if we do, they're really outdated or whatever it is. Or it's a perfect time for us to evangelize research. Sometimes my product partners don't even know we have a research team. In places I've worked, they think that, oh, they do like market research. They don't really know that it's different. So it's actually even a great time to be like, oh, did you know that we have, we do user research and we have people that do that, or it's a skill set that we have. So yes and no. It's a great time to bring it, and it's also a great time to highlight that it doesn't exist and we should do it.
Okay, that's really great. Thank you.
Pleasure. This is the most fun. I like the Q&A the best.
We have time for a couple more questions. So
Sure.
Is there anybody who wants to ask Daphne some more questions?
Come on, Michelle or Jess. I know some of my old design buddies are on the call. Oh, it's also like a cold kind of wintry night, so I don't blame it if people are just like rugged up and want to be warm and cozy and don't want to ask any questions. And I'm sorry I didn't go into too much detail on the canvas, because if I do, it's like a whole nother hour. I can, and I'm more than happy to. It's like my favorite thing to talk about. But yeah, it's a longer session, and I'm definitely keen to do it if anybody wants to do it.
Chris asked another question, and
Sure.
that was, what was your biggest challenge working on the Agile design system?
Oh, I mean, it's the age-old stuff, right? It was you know, the rest of the business not understanding, I guess, the value straight away and not always using it. So really spending time evangelizing it as much as we could. Also bridging the gaps between engineering, because sometimes design systems can be a little bit contentious because they include code, or, you know, they include deliverables or initiatives that usually fall into like an engineering team or a front-end developers team, or, you know, kind of roles and responsibilities. So we did spend a lot of time really working closely with engineers to understand how the design system could make their lives better, how we could collaborate and understand kind of the areas of opportunity for them and things that they're on the hook for. We went to a lot of their guilds and talked about accessibility beyond like screen readers. So we kind of started to create some like bridging and understanding between engineering and design, because there was a lot of kind of misconceptions about what design systems do. But I feel like, you know, a lot of that stuff is the stereotypical ones. Also, not specifically at GEL, even at Capital One and other places that I've spoken to design systems about. Sometimes designers feel that design systems kind of take away from their creativity. Whereas where I've really seen design systems shine is they sort of help reduce the noise and let you kind of focus on solving bigger problems, because you don't want to deal with the nuance of a button and a pixel here and there. And if you can rapidly prototype and get things out the door to your customers faster, you can learn faster. So I challenge those ones of designers feeling like design systems can take away from their creativity. But those are kind of the three. The business not really understanding what to do with it, engineering kind of wondering how this plays in their space, and then design feeling like, oh, it's kind of taking away from my creativity.
Cool. We've got 4 questions.
Oh, so, wow. Oh, yay. I love
everyone, whatever you're doing. All right. The first one's from Hugo. I can invite Hugo onto the screen.
Oh, cool.
Hugo asked the question, how do you keep the adoption of the process? Do you include any training material on the onboarding?
The adoption of the process. So meaning the double diamond process, or maybe he can jump on. Can he jump on? Or you mean the lean canvas, like the DVF process and all of that? See if you can invite him.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him.
Oh, cool. Hi.
Oh, hello. Hey. Yeah, so just to clarify my question for you, Daphne, I guess like you kind of like implemented and you run these workshops with like the lean workshops with different teams, in different moments. But as newbies and the team grows, like especially like when the team is growing fast, how do you keep like, I want to say, the momentum and the kind of like the adoption of like the entire process and mindset of like, oh, that's the way that we do things in here. Like, do you include any of this material, or do you have any type of like session or something like that during the onboarding of new team members, or does that just happens on the moments of the workshops, like that they get to know like through other people or through these workshops?
Oh, that's great. I should have done it in onboarding. I haven't. But I think where we've made sure to keep kind of the process wheels on is by getting, like, pushing it up the chain, right? So a lot of what I did at Capital One, I remember bringing the DVF framework and the lean canvas, to my head of, and she just didn't get it. And a lot of it took me almost a year to kind of get her over the line and to get her to understand the value that it was going to add. And then the more and more I kind of pushed it up higher, the more the senior executives started to say, okay, before we start this work, or before we, kick off or prioritize, or before you guys go away and do your roadmaps, let's do this. So I really had to push it up the chain for them to kind of make it a thing and to kind of operationalize it. Because at first it was very just kind of grassroots, and I would do, I'd jump into that all hands, or it was sort of word of mouth, or I would do those learning lunches. But until I kind of got the senior leadership involved and we looked at those process improvements, I wish I could show you that map again. But remember the process improvement map that I showed you? As soon as I kind of highlighted those gaps of how we're kind of doing things now as is, and then showed them where if we put this lean canvas in, like how that could help the operations, all those good things I was talking about, they got it. So I think you kind of have to visualize it, sell it in, and then onboarding is a great idea. I'm actually going to take that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm asking because we're definitely on a very similar page on something at Canva, where I'm working at the moment. And we're just about to roll this kind of, it's kind of like a process mindset, or how we work process. And because we want to get alignment, so there is a little bit of a misalignment of how the teams are doing that at the moment. And we want to bring that kind of as an alignment. And my question at the moment is how are we going to keep that up? Because the growth of the team is going very fast. And we are having team members coming in every week. So how are we going to let them know that we have this model?
We are scaling so quickly as well. I try to again, sell it in with senior guys, even product directors. So I'll work really closely with product directors, and then they'll kind of disseminate it down to maybe their product teams. So if I can pilot it like that, and then it's almost like if I teach them to fish and then get them to kind of implement it and keep those wheels on, and then teach design how to keep asking for it or expecting it. And that's usually, as long as I can get senior people doing it. And then if I can, for example, the last time we did this, not the all hands video that I showed you, but we had an all hands where we said, as product, we are going to now start to do this type of work, and we're going to kick it off this way using these tools. So then it was just this BAU. It was just kind of business as usual. This is how we work.
Yeah. No, that sounds awesome. Thanks very much, Daphne.
Pleasure. Good luck at Canva.
Thank you.
There's one final question from Michelle. What are the great things you've learned working at Capital One that you brought with you to this new role at Afterpay? What are the things that you've left behind?
Oh, she's so good. Things that I've brought, I definitely think realizing that you have to make those partnerships outside of design. So important to really kind of get to know your engineering partners, your agile coaches, the analytics guys, really just getting out there and evangelizing design and understanding how the rest of the business works. So not just pigeonholing myself within the design team, but really looking across who kind of engages in what that. Oh, hi!
It looks so dark in here.
It does look dark.
I'm in my kitchen. I'm going to get my husband to fix the lighting. Anyway.
Such a good question, of course. And something that I actually learned kind of the hard way was, as much as I implemented all these great things, sometimes my designers weren't ready for them. And realizing that even though it was a really good idea and like senior stakeholders loved it and my product partners loved it, I had to make sure that my design team was then ready to do it. So you can sell it in all you want, but if you haven't really like helped the guys kind of understand how it works and coach them on how to do it and how to engage in those DVF workshops and Lean Canvas, then you're kind of setting them up for failure. And then you're just sort of recreating that, product ownership wheel.
I love that. And if I can probe a little bit further, what are those leading indicators for you where you know that they're ready? Like they obviously say stuff, but then doing things, like what are the signs that you look for that your design team is really ready? Let's kind of go to that next slide.
Yeah, great question. One big indicator I noticed with the team that I was working with for 3 to 6 months was when the designers started to set up workshops with their product partner without me or without their manager. They kind of were just like, they just did it. They didn't need me. They didn't need me to help set it up or facilitate it. It's like they actually just took it and then did it themselves. It was like magic. And they came back and, oh, we ran all these DVF workshops. I was like, what? When did you do that? And really they started to kind of take that ownership and say, hey, product, we need to meet more regularly. We need to plan. They started to tell product what they needed. So having that confidence to negotiate more with product or with engineering what design needed, rather than just being like, okay, thanks, I'll go away and go do this. That sort of change was a big indicator.
They must have had someone really awesome to give them all those strategies, tools, and that foundation to.
You're too good. You're too good.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
You always need one softball in the audience. She's so lovely.
Hello. All right.
Hi.
We might wrap it up there. So I'd like to say thank you for talking to us all today. It's been an amazing talk. I think we all got a lot from it.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much, Daphne.
No problem.
There will be a recording of this meetup, so you can kind of, we can share it on to other people as well. Cool. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, I just want to wrap up the meetup. Thanks all for coming. We have a community on Slack, so please join it, designops.lol. Please come join our community. And you can go find all the resources for DesignOps on designops.lol. That's the Slack. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you.